A 1.5-inch scale Allchin Royal Chester traction engine renovation. Part 14, making a pair of steering chain fittings to replace the ones that were missing. I'm hoping that this is going to be a simple job. All I have to do is copy the existing ones, but possibly I think my method of construction will be slightly different. I finished the previous episode with this shot. It's the plastic cap from an aerosol tin of paint, better known as a rattle can. I'm going to use this to mix up some flux for the silver soldering operation that you're about to see. Normally I would use Easy Flow No. 2 flux, but for steel I need to use this stuff. It's called Tenacity No. 5. First of all, I put some water in the plastic cap and then added some of the flux powder. For the job that I'm about to do, I need a very small amount of this stuff, but so I could show the viscosity of the mix, I mixed a lot. I would generally aim for a mixture that resembles double cream. And here I've applied some to the parts I'm going to silver solder. My brazing hearth in the outer part of the workshop is made up by using vermiculite fire bricks. 2 layers of them to be exact. I've borrowed one to bring into the inner part of the workshop to sit on the bench. You cannot do this job successfully if the parts you're silver soldering are sat on a wooden bench. I'm going to use my small Proxon blowtorch, which, believe it or not, just uses standard butane for cigarette lighters. All I have to do is heat these parts to the correct temperature using the small blowtorch, and it didn't take very long. This is a very hot flame. When silver soldering, I would normally heat the part until the flux takes on a watery appearance, but I'm doing this slightly differently. I need a strong joint and I want plenty of silver solder to actually flow around the joint. And I bring the stick of silver solder close to the flame just before it's at the right temperature. And the heat of the blowtorch melts the silver solder, which deposits a blob on the work. Watch this. Once the silver solder melts and flows into the joint, I keep the heat on for a while to make sure the temperature is high enough. I want the silver solder to flow like this because I don't want the job to look like a metal ring just silver soldered onto a threaded bar. By doing it this way, with a generous amount of silver solder, when this part's cleaned up and painted, it will look like a forging. While the first part is cooling, I repeat the process for the second one. It's important to raise this part to the correct temperature. If it's not hot enough, the joint will be brittle. I'm not going to quench these parts, I'm just going to let them cool naturally. Why is that, you may be wondering? Well, the reason is simple. It's so cold in the workshop, my pot of water has frozen. The next thing I need to do is make 2 wire loops. There should be steel, but I can't find any, so brass will be fine. This is a very small traction engine, and this will be more than strong enough for the job. All I did was bend the piece of wire to exactly the same size and shape as the one fitted to the original chain. Now I need to change the shape of the part that I machined in the lathe. Using a countersink in my drilling machine, I'm countersinking each side of the centre of the part, and this is how I'm doing it, with a piece of wood to hold the part against the countersink in the drilling machine. This is also a very good test for the strength of the joint. If it drops to bits, then your silver soldering is not good enough. If that does happen, clean up the parts, re-silver solder them with plenty of flux at a higher temperature. The countersink is not good enough. I need to round off the countersink using this burr in my Proxon motor tool. This tool is quite vicious and you have to be fairly careful with it. The good thing is that it takes away a lot of the appearance of it being machined in a lathe. The threaded studding that I silver soldered to these fittings is 7BA, so now I need to find some 7BA nuts. After fitting the nuts and attaching the chain, I end up with 2 steering chains that are very similar. Both are the same length. And once again my thanks go to John Holroyd at the Steam Workshop for giving me a piece of chain. I made sure that both of these pieces of chain were exactly the same length. I've never worked with steering chains on a model traction engine before, and it puzzled me a bit because initially the chains were too long. And it took me a while to figure out how to adjust them so they were just the right length and remove most of the backlash in the steering wheel. More about that in the next episode. To make everything match, what I need to do now is paint the parts that I've made black. I found another useful application for a barcode adjustable spanner. It will hold these parts when I paint them, and also it will hold the parts while I soft solder the link together. I'm using a new soldering iron that I bought from B&Q, which has got a massive tip, and that makes a change. I tinned the tip using some multi-core solder, then held the tinned area of the tip underneath the link and applied some solder. Now it looks like this, and I think it will be fine. Especially when it's painted, which I'm doing at the moment. I found it easier to paint this item holding it in my hand. I'll finish this episode with a shot of the paint drying. Stay safe, stay healthy, thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.